The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It drummed against the windows of our Tudor-style home in Westchester, creating a melancholic soundtrack that seemed to mirror the gray emptiness I'd been feeling lately. At 52, I'd thought I had life figured out. 28 years of marriage to David, 2 wonderful children, Marcus, our 29-year-old son who worked in finance, and our daughter Lily, 26, and teaching art at a local elementary school. We had the house, the careers, the carefully curated life that looked perfect from the outside. I should have known that perfection was just another word for illusion. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my world shattered. I'd left work early. The museum where I worked as a curator was having plumbing issues, and they'd sent us all home. I remember feeling almost giddy about the unexpected free time. I'd planned to surprise David, maybe suggest we go out for an early dinner. We hadn't done that in months. Years, maybe. The garage was empty when I pulled in, which struck me as odd. David's car should have been there. He'd mentioned a conference call from home that afternoon. But I shrugged it off. Maybe he'd gone to the office after all. Maybe the call had been rescheduled. I entered through the mudroom, slipping off my wet shoes and hanging my coat on the hook. The house was quiet, wrapped in that peculiar stillness that makes you feel like you're intruding in your own home. I walked through the kitchen, noting the coffee cups in the sink, 2 of them, and felt the first flutter of unease in my stomach. That's when I heard it. A sound from upstairs. Not quite laughter, not quite conversation. Something intimate and low that made my skin prickle with warning. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, my hand gripping the banister, telling myself I was being ridiculous. It was probably the television, or maybe David was on a video call. But my feet were already moving, carrying me up the stairs one careful step at a time, my heart beginning to pound in a way that had nothing to do with exertion. The sound was coming from the guest room. The door was slightly ajar, and through the crack I could see movement, shadows shifting against the afternoon light filtering through the curtains. I should have announced myself, should have called out, should have turned around and walked away, giving myself time to process, to think, to prepare. But I didn't. I pushed the door open, and there they were. My husband of 28 years, and Sophia, my son's fiancée. They sprang apart like teenagers caught by their parents, which would have been almost comical if it wasn't so devastating. David's face went from flushed to pale in the space of a heartbeat. Sophia grabbed for her blouse, her eyes wide with something that might have been fear or guilt or both. I stood frozen in the doorway, my brain struggling to process what my eyes were seeing. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of nightmare, and any moment I would wake up in my bed, David beside me, everything normal and safe and the way it was supposed to be. But I didn't wake up. The scene before me remained stubbornly, horrifically real. Catherine. David's voice cracked on my name. He was reaching for his pants, his movements jerky and graceless. Catherine, this isn't... Don't. The word came out sharper than I'd intended, cutting through whatever excuse he was about to offer. Don't you dare tell me this isn't what it looks like. Sophia had managed to button her blouse, though it was crooked, and she was crying. Actually crying, tears streaming down her 25-year-old face. The face that had smiled at me across countless family dinners. The face that had looked at my son with what I'd believed was genuine love when he'd proposed 6 months ago. Mrs. Morrison, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I never meant. It just happened. Get out. I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Inside, I was screaming, shattering into 1,000 pieces, but outside, I was ice. Get out of my house. Now. Sophia grabbed her purse and fled, practically running past me. I heard her footsteps thundering down the stairs, heard the front door slam. And then it was just me and David and 28 years of history hanging in the air between us like smoke. How long? I asked. David had finished dressing. He sat on the edge of the guest bed, the bed I'd carefully made up with fresh linens just last week for my mother's visit, and put his head in his hands. Catherine, please let me explain. How long? He looked up at me, And I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Shame, yes. Guilt, absolutely. But also something else. Something that looked almost like relief. 3 months, he said quietly. 3 months. A quarter of a year. An entire season of lies and betrayal and sneaking around behind not just my back, but our son's back. I thought about the last 3 months. Tried to remember if there had been signs, clues I'd missed. David working late. Sophia's frequent visits to discuss wedding plans with me. The two of them at Marcus's birthday dinner in September, barely looking at each other, which I'd thought was strange at the time but had dismissed. I'd dismissed it. I'd seen something off and I'd dismissed it because I trusted them. I trusted my husband. I'd trusted my future daughter-in-law. Does Marcus know? I asked. David shook his head. No. God, no. Catherine, we never meant for this to happen. If you say it just happened one more time, I swear to God, David. I moved into the room, my legs shaking. I sat in the armchair by the window, as far from him as I could get. Nothing just happens. You made choices, both of you. Every single day for 3 months, you made the choice to betray our son, to betray me, to betray our family. I know. His voice was barely a whisper. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry. I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. You're sorry. Well, that fixes everything, doesn't it? We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, the rain continued its relentless drumming. I found myself focusing on it, counting the drops, anything to avoid looking at the man I'd shared my life with, the man who suddenly seemed like a stranger. Why? I finally asked. Why her? Why our son's fiancée, for God's sake? David rubbed his face with both hands. He looked older suddenly. Or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time in years. The gray in his hair, the lines around his eyes, the slight thickening around his middle. When had we gotten so old? I don't know how to explain it, he said. She made me feel young again, alive. These past few years, Catherine, I felt like I was just going through the motions. Work, home, sleep, repeat. And then Sophia came into our lives, and she was so full of energy, so vibrant, and she actually listened when I talked, actually seemed interested in what I had to say. And I don't? My voice rose. Is that what you're saying? That I don't listen to you? That I don't make you feel alive? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, David? Please, enlighten me. Help me understand how you justify sleeping with our son's fiancée. He stood up, started pacing. I can't justify it. I know it's wrong. I know it's the worst thing I could have done. But Catherine, when was the last time we really talked, really connected? We're like roommates who happen to be married. We eat dinner in front of the TV. We sleep in the same bed but barely touch. We have the same conversations about the same things day after day after day. His words hit harder than I wanted to admit because there was truth in them. We had become comfortable, complacent. We'd raised our children and built our careers, and somewhere along the way, we'd stopped seeing each other as people and started seeing each other as fixtures, as reliable, unchanging parts of the landscape of our lives. But that didn't excuse this. It didn't excuse any of this. So the solution was to sleep with a woman young enough to be your daughter, I said, to destroy our son's happiness, to blow up our family? I wasn't thinking about any of that when it started. I was just feeling something again. Anything, instead of this endless numbness. I stood up, my legs still unsteady. I need you to leave. Catherine, I need you to pack a bag and leave this house. Tonight. Now. I can't look at you right now. I can't be in the same room with you. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Go to a hotel. Go to hell. Just get out of my sight. He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my face must have stopped him. He nodded, and walked past me, careful not to touch me, not to get too close. I heard him in our bedroom, which was now somehow tainted too, opening drawers, the sound of a zipper. I stayed in the guest room, looking out at the rain, trying to figure out how I was going to tell Marcus that his father and his fiancée had been having an affair, trying to figure out how our family would survive this, trying to figure out if I even wanted it to. Part 2. The aftermath. David left that night, and the house felt both emptier and lighter without him. I didn't sleep. I lay in our bed, my bed now, I supposed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through memories and moments, rewriting our history with this new, terrible knowledge. The morning came gray and dim, the rain finally tapering off to a drizzle. I called in sick to work, something I almost never did, and spent the morning drinking coffee and trying to figure out what to do next. I had to tell Marcus, that much was clear. But how? How do you tell your child that his father and his fiancée have betrayed him in the worst possible way? How do you shatter his world with words? I was still wrestling with this when my phone rang. Lily's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, honey," I said, trying to sound normal. "Mom? Are you okay? You sound weird." Lily had always been perceptive, even as a child. She could read emotions the way other people read books, intuiting things that weren't said, sensing undercurrents in conversations. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just tired. Didn't sleep well." "Is Dad there?" "No, he's not here right now." A pause. "Mom, what's wrong? And don't say nothing because I can hear it in your voice." I closed my eyes. I couldn't tell her over the phone. This wasn't phone news. "Can you come over? Maybe later this afternoon?" "I'm coming now." "Lily, you don't have to. I'm already grabbing my keys. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up before I could protest further. I set the phone down and went to make more coffee. My hands were shaking. Lily arrived in 15 minutes, her hair still wet from a quick shower, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "Tell me," she said simply. So I did. I told her everything. About coming home early, about what I'd found, about David's confession that it had been going on for 3 months, about sending him away. I kept my voice steady, clinical almost, as if I was recounting a story that had happened to someone else. Lily's face went through a series of emotions: shock, disbelief, anger, and finally, something that looked like devastation. "Sophia," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dad and Sophia?" I nodded. "That's..." She stood up, started pacing the kitchen the way David had paced the guest room yesterday. "That's insane. That's disgusting. How could he..." She turned to look at me. "Mom, are you okay?" The question broke something in me. I'd been holding myself together with sheer willpower, but Lily's concern, the gentleness in her voice, cracked my carefully constructed composure. I started crying. Not delicate tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside me. Lily wrapped her arms around me and held me while I fell apart, making soothing sounds, rubbing my back the way I used to rub hers when she had nightmares as a child. "We have to tell Marcus," I said when I could finally speak again. Lily pulled back, her own eyes red. "I know, but Mom, this is going to destroy him. He's so happy with Sophia. He thinks he's found his person. This is going to absolutely destroy him. Which is why we have to tell him now, before he finds out some other way. Before Sophia tells him her version of events." "Do you think she will? Tell him, I mean?" I thought about Sophia's face yesterday, the tears, the panic. I don't know. Maybe she'll try to convince him it was all David's fault. Maybe she'll try to make it seem less serious than it was. Maybe she'll lie. "She's been lying for 3 months, Lily said bitterly. Why would she stop now? I called Marcus. He was in the office but said he could leave early. Could he come over around 4? There was something I needed to discuss with him. Family stuff. Important. I could hear the concern in his voice, but also confusion. Is everyone okay? Is it Grandma? Everyone's healthy, I assured him. Just come over, okay? And Marcus, maybe don't mention this to Sophia. Another pause. Okay, Mom. That's a weird thing to say, but okay. I'll see you at 4. The hours until 4 o'clock crawled by. Lily stayed with me, both of us moving around the house in a strange dance of anxiety and dread. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? We were waiting for the moment when we would have to break our family apart even further. Marcus arrived promptly at 4, still in his work clothes, navy suit, blue tie, leather briefcase. He looked so much like David had at that age that it hurt to look at him. He had David's dark hair, his strong jaw, his confident bearing. But he had my eyes, my smile. Hey, Mom. He kissed my cheek, then nodded at Lily. Didn't know you'd be here too. Is this like a family meeting or something? Sit down, Marcus, I said. Something in my tone must have alarmed him because his expression shifted from curious to concerned. What's going on? Where's Dad? Your father. I stopped, gathered myself. Your father isn't living here right now. What? Why? Are you separating? Yes, because yesterday I came home from work early and found your father in bed with Sophia. The words hung in the air like poison. I watched my son's face as he processed what I'd said, watched the confusion, then the disbelief, then the moment when the disbelief shattered and he understood that I was telling him the truth. No, he said. No, that's not possible. Sophia wouldn't. Dad wouldn't. Marcus, I saw them. I walked in on them. There's no mistake. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is crazy. This is insane. You must have misunderstood what you saw. There has to be another explanation. There isn't, Lily said softly. Mom caught them, Marcus. And Dad admitted it. He told her it's been going on for 3 months. 3 months? Marcus's voice cracked. He looked at me, his eyes desperate. Mom, please tell me this is some kind of horrible joke. Please. I wish it was, baby. I wish it was. He sank back into his chair, his face draining of color. 3 months, he repeated. We've been engaged for 6 months. So they were, while she was planning our wedding? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Marcus put his head in his hands. For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. Then he looked up, and his face was transformed with rage. I'm going to kill him, he said flatly. I'm going to actually kill him. Marcus, no. I moved toward him, but he stood up again, already pulling out his phone. I need to talk to Sophia. I need to hear this from her. I don't think that's a good idea right now, Lily said. You're too angry. You need to calm down first. Calm down? CALMDOWN? He was shouting now. My fiancé has been sleeping with my father, and you want me to calm down? He was already dialing. I watched helplessly as he put the phone to his ear, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. Sophia, we need to talk. Right now. A pause. I don't care if you're at work. Meet me at our apartment in 15 minutes. Another pause. Sophia, I know. My mother told me. So unless you want to have this conversation on the phone where everyone at your office can hear, I suggest you get home. Now. He hung up and headed for the door. Marcus, wait, I called after him. He turned, and I was struck by how much older he looked than he had just minutes ago. The youth had been stripped from his face, replaced by something harder and sadder. I need to hear it from her, he said. I need to look her in the eye and hear her say it. Otherwise, some part of me will always wonder if maybe you were wrong, if maybe there was some other explanation. Do you want me to come with you? Lily asked. He shook his head. No. This is something I need to do alone. And then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a finality that made my heart ache. Lily and I looked at each other. "Should we go after him?" she asked. "He's a grown man. He needs to handle this his own way." But I was worried. I'd seen the look in Marcus's eyes, the rage barely contained beneath the surface. I'd seen David's face yesterday, the shame and guilt. What would happen when those two forces collided? I called David. He answered on the first ring. "Catherine?" "Marcus knows. He's on his way to confront Sophia. I thought you should know, in case he comes after you next." "How is he? How do you think he is, David? You slept with his fiancée. You betrayed your own son. How do you think he is?" I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so—" "Stop saying you're sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't even begin to touch this." I took a breath. "I just wanted to warn you. Whatever happens next, whatever Marcus does or says, you deserve it. Remember that." I hung up before he could respond. Part 3. Fractures. Marcus didn't call that night, or the next day, or the day after that. I texted him multiple times, called his phone, but everything went straight to voicemail. Lily stopped by his apartment, but he wouldn't answer the door. She could hear him inside, but he refused to let her in. "He needs time," Lily said, though she looked as worried as I felt. What if he does something stupid? What if he hurts himself, or hurts someone else? "Marcus isn't violent, Mom. And he's not suicidal. He's just processing." But I couldn't shake the image of his face when I'd told him, the way the news had physically knocked him back like a blow. On the third day, Sophia called me. I stared at her name on my phone screen, debating whether to answer. What could she possibly have to say to me? What explanation or apology could make any of this better? But curiosity got the better of me. I answered. "Mrs. Morrison." Her voice was thick, like she'd been crying. "Please don't hang up. I need to talk to you." "I don't think we have anything to talk about, Sophia." "Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Against my better judgment, I said, "Fine. 5 minutes. I know you hate me. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to understand that I never meant to hurt Marcus. I never meant for any of this to happen." "You keep saying that. You and David. That you never meant for it to happen." "But it did happen, Sophia. For 3 months it happened. Every time you came to this house for dinner, every time you sat across from Marcus and smiled at him and talked about wedding plans, you were lying to him. You were betraying him. I know. God, I know, and I hate myself for it. But you have to believe me when I say I love Marcus. I really do love him." I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. "You have a funny way of showing it." It was a mistake. A terrible, horrible mistake. But it's over now. David and I have ended it. And I'm begging Marcus to forgive me, to give me another chance. We can get past this. We can rebuild. "Are you insane?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think Marcus is going to marry you after this? You think he's going to forgive you for sleeping with his father? People make mistakes, Mrs. Morrison. People fall into temptations. But that doesn't mean relationships can't survive. Your marriage survived 28 years. You and David built a whole life together. Surely you can understand that love is complicated, that people are complicated. My marriage is over, Sophia. My husband destroyed it when he decided to sleep with you. And your relationship with Marcus? That's over too. You destroyed it." "No." Her voice rose, desperate. "No, it doesn't have to be. If you would just talk to Marcus, if you would help him understand—" "Help him understand what? That you and his father had an affair? That you betrayed him in the worst possible way? There's nothing to understand, Sophia. You made your choice. Now, you have to live with the consequences." "I made a mistake." "One mistake, and now my whole life is falling apart. Marcus won't talk to me. He changed the locks on our apartment. He sent my things to my sister's house in boxes. He won't even read my texts. Please, Mrs. Morrison, please talk to him for me. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I love him. Tell him—" "I'm not going to tell him anything except that he deserves better than you, better than both of you." I hung up and immediately blocked her number. My hands were shaking. The audacity of her, calling me, asking me to plead her case to Marcus, as if I would help her, as if I would encourage my son to take back the woman who had betrayed him so thoroughly. That night, Marcus finally called. "Mom." His voice was rough, exhausted. "Can I come over?" "Of course. Always." He arrived 20 minutes later. He looked terrible, unshaven, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow, his clothes rumpled like he'd been sleeping in them. I hugged him tight and he let me, collapsing a little into my embrace. "I'm so sorry, baby," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." We sat in the living room, Lily joining us. I made tea that no one drank. For a long time, Marcus just sat there, staring at nothing. "She wants me to forgive her," he finally said. "She's been calling, texting, leaving voicemails. She says it was a mistake, that she loves me, that we can work through this." "What do you want?" I asked. "I want to go back to a week ago when I thought I was going to marry the love of my life. I want to go back to thinking I had a father who respected me, who would never betray me like this." He looked at me, and his eyes were full of pain. "I want to go back to believing that people I love would never hurt me this way." "I know," I said softly. "I want that too." "Did you see it coming? Were there signs I missed?" I thought about that. "I don't know. Maybe. There were moments that seemed odd, but I explained them away. I trusted them. Both of them." "That's what kills me," Marcus said. "The trust. I trusted Dad. I looked up to him my whole life. He was my hero, you know? And Sophia, I was going to marry her. I was going to build a life with her, have children with her. I trusted her completely." He laughed bitterly. "I'm an idiot." "You're not an idiot. You trusted people who should have been trustworthy. You loved people who should have been loyal. That's not your fault." "She keeps saying it just happened, like they had no control over it, like they just fell into bed together by accident, repeatedly, for 3 months." Lily made a disgusted sound. "That's such bullshit. Things don't just happen. They made choices. Every single time they chose to betray you." "I know. I know that in my head. But there's this part of me that keeps wondering if I did something wrong. If I wasn't enough for her somehow. If I drove her to this." "Marcus, no." I grabbed his hand. "This is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. They did. They made these choices, and they have to live with them." "Have you talked to Dad?" "Not since the day I told him to leave. He's been calling me too, leaving messages saying he wants to explain, that he wants to make things right." Marcus looked at me. "Is there anything that could make this right?" "I don't know. I don't know if I can forgive him. I don't know if I want to." "Me neither. Every time I think about him and Sophia together." He stopped, his jaw clenching. "I actually feel physically sick, like I can't breathe." We sat together in silence, 3 people bound by love and now by betrayal, trying to figure out how to move forward when the ground beneath us had been ripped away. Part 4. Revelations. 2 weeks passed. David continued to call, continued to send messages. He wanted to talk. He wanted to explain. He wanted to apologize properly. He wanted to know if there was any chance of reconciliation. I ignored all of it. Marcus returned to work, threw himself into it with a kind of desperate intensity. Lily reported that he was at the office until 10 or 11 every night, sleeping there sometimes. Avoiding his apartment, their apartment, where he'd planned a future with Sophia. I suggested he move back home temporarily, but he refused. He was a grown man, he said. He needed to figure out how to stand on his own 2 feet in this new reality. Lily was the glue holding us together. She came by every day, brought groceries, made sure I was eating, made sure Marcus was responding to texts. She was hurting too. David was her father, and she was furious with him, but she channeled her pain into taking care of us. "Someone has to be functional," she said when I thanked her. "Might as well be me." I threw myself into work. spending long hours at the museum. My colleagues knew something was wrong. I'd lost weight, I wasn't sleeping. I moved through my days like a ghost. But they didn't pry. Small mercies. It was Lily who discovered the truth. She'd gone to the house David was renting, a small apartment across town, to pick up some of his things that I wanted out of the house. Our wedding photos, his diplomas, personal items that I couldn't bear to look at anymore. She called me from her car, and I could hear the shock in her voice. "Mom, there's something you need to know. About Dad and Sophia." My heart sank. What now? What could possibly be worse than what we already know? It's not worse. It's different. Can I come over? She arrived 15 minutes later, her face troubled. We sat at the kitchen table and she pulled out her phone. "I was packing up Dad's things like you asked, and I found this." She showed me a document on her phone screen. It was in a folder labeled legal on his desk. I probably shouldn't have looked, but I took the phone and read. It was a letter from a law firm, a paternity test result. "I don't understand," I said. "A paternity test for who?" "Keep reading." I scrolled down, and my blood ran cold. The test was for Sophia, dated 6 months ago, right around the time Marcus had proposed, and according to the test, David was not Sophia's biological father. "I don't understand," I said again, though pieces were starting to click together in my mind like a horrifying puzzle. Lily took the phone back. "I did some digging. Sophia's mother is Rebecca Laurent. Does that name mean anything to you?" Rebecca Laurent. I searched my memory. David dated a Rebecca in college, before we met. He mentioned her a few times over the years. She was his first serious girlfriend. "Mom, Sophia's mom is 48 years old. If she and Dad dated in college." Oh my God. The room seemed to tilt. "Are you saying—" "I think Sophia might have thought David was her father. I think that's why she approached Marcus in the first place. And that's why she and Dad had this test done." I stared at my daughter, trying to process this new information. "But the test says he's not her—" "I know. But what if Sophia thought he was? What if she spent her whole life thinking David Morrison was her biological father, and then she met Marcus, and she wanted to know for sure before they got married? And when the test came back negative, maybe that's when the affair started. Maybe that's why it started." My mind was reeling. Could this be true? Could Sophia have come into our lives believing she was David's daughter? Had she and Marcus met by chance, or had she sought him out? "I need to talk to David," I said. "Mom, are you sure?" "If this is true, if this is what really happened, then everything we thought we knew is wrong. I need to hear the truth, the whole truth." I called David. For the first time in 2 weeks, I actually wanted to talk to him. "Catherine?" He sounded shocked to hear my voice. "Catherine, thank God, I've been trying to reach you. I need you to come to the house. Now. We need to talk." "I'll be right there." He arrived within the hour. He looked as bad as Marcus had, unshaven, exhausted, wearing jeans and a t-shirt instead of his usual business attire. He'd aged in the past 2 weeks, new lines etched around his eyes and mouth. Lily had left, saying she'd give us privacy. It was just the two of us in the living room where we'd spent so many evenings together, back when we were still a family. "Rebecca Laurent," I said without preamble. "Tell me about her." David's face went white. "How do you— Did Lily—" "She found the paternity test results. And then she found out that Sophia's mother is your old girlfriend. So I'll ask again. Tell me about Rebecca Laurent." David sat down heavily on the couch. "Rebecca and I dated for 2 years in college. We were serious. I thought we might get married. But then she broke up with me right before graduation. Said she was moving to California, wanted to start fresh. I was devastated. And then a few months later, I met you, and I thought I'd moved on." "Did you know she was pregnant?" "No. God, no. If I'd known—" He stopped. "I didn't know until 6 months ago. When Sophia approached you." He nodded. "She came to my office." Said her mother had finally told her the truth about who her father was. Showed me a photo of Rebecca and me from college. She looked so much like Rebecca did at that age, Catherine, and she said she wanted to get to know me, to have a relationship with me, but she didn't want to disrupt my family. She was seeing Marcus seriously by then. They'd been dating for about a year, and she didn't want to make things complicated. So you had the paternity test. I needed to know for sure, and when the results came back negative, I was relieved and devastated at the same time. Relieved because obviously the alternative would have been a nightmare. Marcus unknowingly dating his half-sister. But also devastated because for those few weeks while we waited for the results, I'd started to believe I had another child. I'd started to feel like a father to her. And that's when the affair started. She was upset about the results, too. She'd spent her whole life thinking I was her father. Her mother had told her stories about me, and finding out it wasn't true. She said she felt lost, unmoored, like she didn't know who she was anymore. So you slept with her? My voice was flat. It wasn't like that. Not at first. We were just talking. She'd come by the office or we'd meet for coffee, and we'd talk about Rebecca, about the past, about what might have been. It was innocent. And then one day, it wasn't. We crossed a line, and then we kept crossing it. For 3 months, while she was engaged to our son, while she was planning a wedding to Marcus. I know how it sounds. Do you? Do you have any idea how this sounds? You had an emotional affair that turned physical with a woman young enough to be your daughter, a woman who thought she was your daughter, and you did this while she was engaged to your actual son. When you say it like that, how else should I say it, David? How else can this possibly be interpreted? He put his head in his hands. There's no excuse. I know that. I knew it was wrong even while it was happening. But Catherine, I felt so alive with her. She made me feel like I mattered, like I was important, like I wasn't just someone's husband or someone's father or someone's boss. With her, I was just David, just me. And with me? What were you with me? He looked up, and there were tears in his eyes. With you, I was the man who'd stopped seeing his wife, who'd let the romance die, who'd let our marriage become a habit instead of a choice. The honesty of it stung more than an excuse would have. Because he was right. We had stopped choosing each other. We'd stopped trying. We'd let 28 years of history become a prison instead of a foundation. But that still didn't excuse what he'd done. Did Sophia know the test was negative before you started the affair? Yes, she knew. So she wasn't confused about whether Marcus was her half-brother. No, she knew he wasn't. We both knew. Then what was her excuse? Why did she betray Marcus? David was quiet for a long moment. She said she was looking for something. Connection, maybe. Or understanding. Her whole life, she'd built her identity around being my daughter, and when that turned out to be a lie, she didn't know who she was anymore. She said being with me helped her feel like that identity wasn't completely lost. That's psychotic. That's trauma, David corrected. Her mother lied to her for 25 years. She built a relationship with Marcus based partly on this idea that she was connected to our family, that she belonged here. And then she found out it was all based on a lie. Don't defend her, I said sharply. Don't you dare sit here and defend her to me. I'm not defending her. Or myself. I'm just trying to explain. I don't want explanations. I don't want to understand. I stopped, realizing I didn't know what I wanted. Justice? Revenge? To go back in time and prevent all of this from happening? Does Marcus know about this? I asked. About the paternity test? About why Sophia was in our lives in the first place? I don't know. I haven't talked to him. He won't answer my calls. He needs to know. He deserves to know the whole truth. Will you tell him? No. You will. This is your mess, David. You need to be the one to explain it to him. He won't talk to me. Then you'll have to find a way to make him listen. Write him a letter, send him the test results, But he needs to know that his relationship with Sophia was built on a lie from the very beginning. David nodded slowly. You're right. He does. We sat in silence. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A beautiful evening. It seemed wrong somehow that the world could be so beautiful while everything in my life was falling apart. Catherine, David said quietly, is there any chance at all, that we could get past this? That we could rebuild what we had? I looked at him. This man I'd loved for so long. This man I'd built a life with. This man who'd betrayed me in the most fundamental way. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I can't even imagine forgiving you. But I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll wake up a year from now and feel differently, or if this is it, the end of us. I understand. And Catherine, for what it's worth, I am sorry. I know saying it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that I hate myself for what I've done. To you, to Marcus, to our family. Then you'll understand why I need you to leave now. He stood up slowly, like an old man. I'll tell Marcus everything. I promise. Good. He walked to the door, then turned back. I love you. I know I have no right to say that after what I've done, but I do. I love you, Catherine. I always have. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The words felt hollow, meaningless in the face of everything that had happened. After he left, I sat alone in the darkening room and let myself cry for the first time since that terrible Tuesday afternoon. I cried for my marriage. I cried for my son and his broken heart. I cried for the family we'd been and would never be again. And somewhere in the midst of all that grief, I cried for myself, for the woman who'd trusted too much and seen too late. Part 5. Truth and Consequences. Marcus came over the next morning. David had sent him everything, the paternity test results, copies of emails between him and Sophia, a long letter explaining the entire situation from beginning to end. My son looked like he hadn't slept. He sat at the kitchen table, the envelope from David in front of him, and stared at nothing. Did you know? He asked. About the paternity test? Not until yesterday. Lily found the documents. So Sophia thought Dad was her father. She thought I was her half-brother. Until the test came back. Then she knew you weren't. But she came into my life because of Dad. She met me because she was looking for him. I nodded. Marcus laughed, but it was a broken sound. Our entire relationship was a lie. She didn't fall in love with me. She fell in love with the idea of being part of this family, of having David Morrison as her father. You don't know that, I said, though the words felt weak even as I said them. Don't I? Think about it, Mom. We met at a charity event that Dad's company sponsored. She came up to me specifically, started a conversation about him, asked about our family. I thought she was just being friendly, making small talk, but she was fishing for information. She was trying to figure out if he was really her father. Marcus ... And then when the test came back negative, she didn't break up with me. She didn't confess. She started sleeping with Dad instead. Tell me, how am I supposed to interpret that as anything other than her using me to get close to him? I had no answer, because he was right. When you laid it out like that, Sophia's actions seemed calculated, almost predatory. I feel like such an idiot, Marcus said. I thought I'd found my person. I thought I'd found someone who loved me for me. But it was all a game. I was just a means to an end. That's not... I stopped. Was it true? Had Sophia ever really loved Marcus, or had she just been using him to stay connected to David? My phone rang. Sophia's mother, according to the caller ID, Rebecca Laurent. I looked at Marcus. It's Sophia's mother. Answer it, he said. Let's hear what she has to say. I put the phone on speaker. Mrs. Morrison? This is Rebecca Laurent, Sophia's mother. I think we need to talk. I'm listening. And Marcus is here too. You're on speaker. A pause. Marcus, I'm so sorry for what my daughter has put you through. You lied to her, Marcus said, his voice hard. You told her David was her father when he wasn't. Why? Another pause, longer this time. Because I wanted her to have a father she could be proud of. Someone successful, someone good. Her real father he wasn't a good man. I thought I was protecting her. By lying to her for 25 years, I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. By sending her into our lives with false information that led to all of this, I never meant for her to track David down. I never meant for any of this to happen. But when she turned 18, she started asking questions, and I was tired of keeping the secret. So I told her what I thought was the truth, that David Morrison was her father. You thought? Marcus leaned forward. You didn't know for sure? I was seeing someone else at the same time I was dating David. I was young and stupid and confused. When I got pregnant, I assumed it was David's because we'd been together longer. But I broke up with him before I started showing, moved to California, had Sophia, raised her alone, and I told her about David because I wanted her to know she came from good stock. Good stock, I repeated incredulously. We're not cattle, Rebecca. I know how it sounds. But you have to understand, I was trying to give my daughter a better narrative than the truth. The truth was that I'd been sleeping with 2 men and got pregnant and didn't know which one was the father. That's not a story any child wants to hear. So you lied instead, Marcus said, and your lie led Sophia to me, led her to our family, and destroyed everything. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sophia is devastated. She knows she's ruined everything. She knows she's lost you, and she's having a hard time coping. She's having a hard time? Marcus's voice rose. She had an affair with my father. She lied to me for our entire relationship. She planned a wedding while sleeping with another man. And you're telling me she's having a hard time? Marcus, please. She made terrible mistakes. But she's still a person. She's still my daughter. And right now, she's falling apart. Good, Marcus said flatly. She should fall apart. She destroyed my life. She destroyed my family. I hope she's miserable. Marcus. Rebecca's voice broke. Please. She wants to talk to you. She wants to explain. There's nothing to explain. It's over. Tell Sophia to stop calling me, stop texting me, stop trying to contact me. If she keeps it up, I'll get a restraining order. You don't mean that. I absolutely mean it. Your daughter is toxic. Keep her away from me and my family. He reached out and ended the call. We sat in silence for a moment. Are you okay? I asked. No, but I will be. Eventually. He looked at me. What about you? What are you going to do about Dad? I don't know yet. Right now, I'm just trying to get through each day. Are you going to divorce him? The question hung in the air. Was I? Could our marriage survive this? Did I even want it to? Probably, I said. I can't imagine how we'd come back from this. Marcus nodded. I think that's the right decision. What he did, there's no excuse for it. No matter how he tries to explain it, no matter what circumstances led to it, he made the choice to betray you, to betray all of us. Your father is a complicated man who made terrible choices, but he's still your father. Is he? Because the man who raised me, the man I looked up to my whole life, would never have done what he did. So either I never really knew him, or he's changed into someone I don't recognize. Either way, I'm not sure I have a father anymore. The words were like a knife to my heart. This was what David's actions had cost us, not just a marriage, but the relationship between father and son, the fabric of our entire family. Don't make any decisions right now, I said. You're angry and hurt, and you have every right to be. But don't burn bridges you might want to cross later. Did you take your own advice? I kicked your father out of the house. I've barely spoken to him in 2 weeks. So no, I haven't taken my own advice. But I'm 52 years old, and I've been married to the man for almost 3 decades. You're 29. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't let this destroy your capacity to forgive. I don't want to forgive him. I want to hate him. You can do both. You can hate what he did and still, someday, find a way to forgive the man who did it. Marcus stood up. I need to get to work. But Mom, thank you for telling me the truth, for being honest, even when it hurt. That's what mothers do. After he left, I sat alone with my thoughts. Rebecca's call had clarified some things. Sophia had come into our lives looking for a father, and she'd found one, just not in the way she'd expected. And David, mourning the daughter he thought he might have had found comfort in the wrong place, with the wrong person. It didn't excuse what they'd done, but it helped me understand it. Understanding, though, was a long way from forgiveness. Part 6. Moving forward. The divorce papers arrived 3 weeks later. I'd contacted a lawyer, explained the situation, and started the process. David hadn't fought it. He'd signed everything quietly, agreed to my terms, accepted that our marriage was over. The house felt different now, emptier, but also lighter. I'd spent the past month removing traces of David, his clothes, his books, his toiletries. The bathroom counter no longer had his electric razor. The closet no longer held his suits. The study was no longer filled with his papers and files. I was erasing him from my daily life, one item at a time. Lily continued to be my rock. She came over several times a week, brought dinner, made sure I was taking care of myself. She'd cut off contact with David completely, telling him she needed time before she could talk to him again. I'm so angry at him, she confessed one evening. Every time I think about what he did, I just want to scream. He ruined everything. Our family is broken because he couldn't keep it in his pants. Don't reduce it to just that, I said. It's more complicated. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems pretty simple. Dad cheated on you with Marcus's fiancée. Everything else is just details. She had a point. In the end, all the explanations and circumstances didn't change the fundamental facts. David had betrayed me, and Sophia had betrayed Marcus, and our family would never be the same. Marcus threw himself into work with an almost manic intensity. He got a promotion, moved to a new apartment in the city, started dating again. Nothing serious. He said he wasn't ready for serious, but he was trying to move on. I'm not going to let what Sophia and Dad did define the rest of my life, he told me over coffee one Saturday. They made their choices. Now I'm making mine. I was proud of him, proud of his resilience, his determination to not let betrayal turn him bitter. Have you talked to your father? I asked. Once. He called a few weeks ago and I actually answered. We talked for maybe 5 minutes. He apologized again. I said I wasn't ready to forgive him yet. He said he understood, and that was it. That's progress. Is it? It feels like we're strangers, like there's this huge chasm between us and I don't know how to cross it. Time, I said. It takes time. How much time? I don't know. Maybe years, maybe never. But you don't have to figure it out right now. As for me, I was discovering who I was without David. For 28 years, I'd been Catherine Morrison, David's wife. Now I was just Catherine, just me, and I was learning to like her. I started taking art classes at night, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. I reconnected with old friends I'd let slip away during the years of marriage and child-rearing. I traveled to Paris for a week with a colleague from the museum, my first solo trip in decades. I was rebuilding my life, slowly, painfully, but deliberately. Part 7. Confrontation. 6 months after everything fell apart, I ran into Sophia. It was at a coffee shop near the museum. I'd stopped in for my afternoon latte, and there she was, sitting at a corner table, hunched over a laptop. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was shorter. She wasn't wearing makeup. She looked older, more worn. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I considered just turning around and leaving. But something stopped me. Maybe curiosity. Maybe a need for closure. Maybe just the desire to finally say everything I'd been thinking for the past 6 months. I walked over to her table. Sophia. She looked up, and I saw fear flash across her face. "Mrs. Morrison, I didn't expect to see you here." "May I sit?" She nodded, and I slid into the chair across from her. For a moment, we just looked at each other. This young woman who'd blown up my life, who'd broken my son's heart, who'd slept with my husband. "How are you?" I asked, surprising myself with the genuine curiosity in my voice. "Honestly? Not great. I moved back in with my mom. Lost my job. Word got around about what happened. I'm seeing a therapist twice a week." She laughed, but it was hollow. "So yeah, not great." "Good," I said, and then, "I'm sorry. That was cruel." "No, it wasn't. I deserve it. I deserve all of this." She closed her laptop. "Mrs. Morrison, I need you to know something. I know you probably won't believe me, but I really did love Marcus. I know how it looks. I know it seems like I was just using him to get to David, but I fell in love with him, really truly fell in love with him." "Then why did you do it? Why did you sleep with David?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. "Do you know what it's like to spend your whole life believing something about yourself and then find out it's not true? I spent 25 years thinking I was David Morrison's daughter. I built my identity around that. And then I find out it's a lie. And suddenly I don't know who I am anymore." "That doesn't answer my question." "I'm getting there." She looked up at me. When the paternity test came back negative, I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. And David, he was kind. He listened. He understood what I was going through because he was going through it too, in a way. He thought he might have another daughter, and then he didn't. "So you bonded over your shared disappointment?" "Yes. And then it became more than that. He made me feel like I mattered, like even though I wasn't his daughter, I was still important to him. And I was confused and hurt and stupid, and I made the worst decision of my life." "You made that decision repeatedly. For 3 months. I know. And every single time I hated myself a little more. But I couldn't stop. It was like I was addicted to the feeling of being special to him, of mattering to someone who I'd thought was my father. That's deeply unhealthy." "I know. My therapist has said the same thing in about 100 different ways." She wiped at her eyes. "I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Marcus he was everything. He was kind and funny, and he loved me, really loved me. And I threw that away because I was too broken to appreciate what I had." "Have you tried to contact him?" "Not since he told me to stop. I've written him letters I've never sent. I've typed out texts I've immediately deleted. But I'm trying to respect his boundaries. It's the least I can do." I found myself softening slightly toward her. She was young and damaged and had made terrible choices, but she seemed genuinely remorseful. And unlike David, who kept making excuses, she was taking responsibility for what she'd done. "I can't forgive you," I said. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did to Marcus, what you did to our family, it's unforgivable." "I know, but I hope you get help. I hope your therapy works. I hope you figure out who you are without the lies your mother told you." "Thank you," she whispered. "That's more than I deserve." I stood up. "It is. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because holding on to all this anger is exhausting, and I need to let some of it go." I walked out of the coffee shop feeling strange. Not better exactly, but different. Like I'd turned a corner somehow. Part 8. Reconstruction. A year after that terrible Tuesday, I was a different person. The divorce was finalized. The house was officially mine. David had moved to a new city for a job opportunity, putting distance between himself and the wreckage of what he'd done. Marcus and I had dinner every Sunday. It was our tradition now, our way of staying connected. He'd started dating someone new, a woman named Jennifer who worked in his office. It was still early, but he seemed happy, cautiously optimistic. "She's nothing like Sophia," he told me one Sunday. "She's honest, direct, no games. It's refreshing." "I'm happy for you, honey. Are you?" Happy, I mean, for yourself. I considered the question. Yes, I think I am, or I'm getting there anyway. It was true. I was learning to be happy alone, to find joy in small things. A good book, a beautiful painting at the museum, a long walk through the park. I was dating casually, nothing serious, rediscovering what I liked, what I wanted, who I was without someone else defining me. Lily had started to rebuild her relationship with David. Slowly, carefully, with clear boundaries. They had coffee once a month, talked on the phone occasionally. She said she needed to try, needed to see if they could find a way back to each other. I can't just cut him out of my life completely, she explained. He's my dad. And yeah, he did a terrible thing. But he's still my dad. I understood. And I supported her, even though I had no plans to rebuild my own relationship with David. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. But I'd found a kind of peace with it all. I'd stopped asking why and started asking what now. I'd stopped looking backward and started looking forward. One afternoon, I was at the museum when my phone rang, David's name on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Catherine, thank you for answering. What do you want, David? I wanted to tell you that I'm getting help. Therapy. And I'm working through a lot of things. About myself, about our marriage, about the choices I made. Good for you. I know you don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. You deserved better. You deserved someone who appreciated what he had, who didn't take you for granted, who didn't destroy everything because he was too weak and too selfish to deal with his own issues. You're right. I did deserve better. I know I can't undo what I did. I know I can't fix this, but I want you to know that I'm working on being a better person. Not for you. I know we're done, but for myself, and for any relationship I might have in the future. I'm glad, David. Genuinely. I hope therapy helps you figure out what went wrong and how to not make the same mistakes again. Catherine, I have to go. I'm at work. Right. Of course. Thank you for listening. I hung up and stared at my phone for a moment. Then I turned it off and went back to the painting I'd been examining, a landscape from the 18th century, all rolling hills and dramatic skies. Beautiful things could come from dark times. That's what art taught us. That's what life taught us if we paid attention. I was building something beautiful from the wreckage. It was taking time. It was painful, but it was mine. Epilogue. 2 years later. 2 years after I caught my husband with my son's fiancée, I was standing in a gallery showing my own artwork. The painting classes had turned into a passion, and the passion had turned into this, my first solo exhibition. Marcus was there with Jennifer, who was now his fiancée. The ring on her finger sparkled under the gallery lights. He'd asked my permission before proposing, wanted to make sure I thought he was ready. I told him the truth, that love was always a risk, but it was a risk worth taking if you found the right person. Lily was there with her new girlfriend, both of them studying my paintings with serious expressions, making notes in a small notebook for the review Lily was writing for a local arts magazine. My mother was there, proud and beaming. Friends, colleagues, acquaintances I'd made in the past 2 years, all gathered to celebrate this new chapter of my life. David was not invited, but he'd sent flowers. White lilies, my favorite, with a card that simply said, "Congratulations. You always had talent. I'm glad you're sharing it with the world." I'd thrown the card away but kept the flowers. They looked lovely in the vase near the entrance. Mom, this one is incredible. Marcus stood in front of my largest painting, an abstract piece in blues and grays and whites that I'd titled Aftermath. It was turbulent and chaotic, but with hints of light breaking through the darkness. Thank you, honey. It's how you felt, isn't it? When everything fell apart. Yes, but also how I feel now, like I'm emerging from the chaos into something calmer. He put his arm around my shoulders. I'm proud of you. For getting through this, for not letting what happened destroy you. I'm proud of you too. Look at us, still standing. Still standing, he agreed. Later that evening, after the gallery had closed and the guests had left, I stood alone among my paintings. 2 years ago, I'd thought my life was over. I'd thought the betrayal would break me beyond repair. But here I was, not just surviving, but thriving, creating, living. The affair had destroyed my marriage, fractured my family, changed all of us forever. But it hadn't destroyed me. If anything, it had freed me to become someone I'd always wanted to be but never had the courage to pursue. I thought about Sophia sometimes, wondered if she'd found her way. I thought about David, hoped his therapy was helping him become a better version of himself. I thought about Marcus and the pain he'd endured and how he'd transformed it into strength. We were all different now, changed by what had happened. But change wasn't always bad. Sometimes it was necessary. Sometimes it was the only way forward. I locked up the gallery and stepped out into the cool evening air. Tomorrow, I would start a new painting. Tomorrow, I would have coffee with Lily. Tomorrow, I would live my life on my own terms.